Hello and welcome to the Revolut Insider podcast, where we take a look at Revolut from the inside out, one episode at a time. I'm your host, Alex Kirill, and joining me today is Jonathan Beanie, Head of Talent Acquisition here at Revolut. Hi, Jonathan. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. You've had an interesting journey since you've been at Revolut. How many positions have you had while you've been here?
I've lost count. I'd say probably somewhere between 6 or 7 different positions since joining.
I'd like to ask you some questions about why you changed positions at Revolut, what that says about us as a company, and since you've worked in performance before, maybe you can give us a breakdown as to how performance is measured here and some tips on how to showcase your own performance.
Definitely within my area of expertise, so interested to get into it.
So your latest role as Head of Talent Acquisition, are you all settled in?
I am settled in, I'd say. It's an interesting one as it's gone full circle. So when I first joined Revolut in 2022, I started as head of operations for what was then recruitment. I then moved away from the department to do other things and now found myself brought back in as head of talent acquisition. So it's great to be back and definitely settled in.
And we're glad to have you.
It's been a pleasure to be working with the same people and see lots of new faces as well.
I'm sure, yes.
Yeah.
And you've worked in different capacities within the overall talent umbrella here, as you mentioned. But how is this role proving to be different from your previous roles?
It's now definitely a lot more of a leadership role. The department, when I first joined in 2022, was a lot smaller. The company itself was a lot smaller. And in the subsequent 2.5 years, we've seen a huge amount of growth, which has meant that the department I'm now super fortunate to be in charge of is far bigger. And there's a lot more of a focus on people management and helping ensure that we get the best out of the team to continue on what's been pretty hectic growth so far.
Do you remember how many people were working at the company when you started in 2022?
So I started March 2022, and I'd say approximately 3,000 employees.
Wow. And now we're at?
Nearly 12,000.
Incredible.
When you include internal and external employees, nearly 12,000. So we've gone 4x in terms of headcount in 2.5, nearly 3 years.
So 6 roles, 2 years. What fuels your drive to change job roles?
I think the biggest inspiration for me and reason I've changed job roles so often is opportunity to work on new and exciting problems that are definitely outside of my comfort zone, to challenge myself, but then also see the real tangible impact that I can have on the company.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in my current role, working in talent acquisition, I think one of the best bits is being able to continue to bring in the best talent that we can find in all of our different markets to help really drive those new features and services we're putting out to our millions of customers.
And as someone who values challenges the way that you do and the rewards that come with it all, as you mentioned, how has Revolut enabled you to pursue your own goals?
So I'd say my principal goal has always been to better myself and to grow as much as possible within a professional capacity. And I think the way that we have performance set up and the way that we have our progression and promotion framework and ability to see that continuous upwards movement has really enabled that and allowed me to grow with the business and continue to challenge myself.
I think that's what you ultimately look for in a company, right? Somewhere where you can grow not only professionally, but personally as well, that aligns with these goals that you have and these ambitions that you have for yourself.
For sure. And I think we'll talk about it with my military career. I've always been an inherently competitive person and someone who's like to push themselves to do more and be better at what they do. And I think the way we have things structured here at Revolut and the way we do our quarterly performance cycles and things like that definitely echoes or resonates with that need I have and what I seek from a job.
I mean, 6 jobs, you're definitely doing more.
Yeah, for sure.
You mentioned finding this top talent, and ultimately you're responsible for overseeing all the hiring efforts here at Revolut. How do you think your story might resonate with someone listening who might be either already working for us or considering a career at Revolut?
I think the biggest thing that I've seen from my personal journey here at Revolut is it's the sort of company that truly values your capacities and your outputs and what you're able to really deliver for the company. So a lot of the interview processes that people will go through will assess technical skills and technical knowledge if the field requires it, but there's also a focus on core skills like problem solving and then also the culture fit, like how closely do people align with our ways of working here at Revolut. So I think as long as you're the sort of person that shows those values and has that initiative and that ability to solve problems, whatever they may be, then that we give almost a greater weight to in the interview process than potentially the technical skills or the qualifications that people might put onto their CV.
And you mentioned this opportunity to have a chance to really have an active impact in problem solving to deliver solutions for millions of customers around the world. But how does Revolut recognize and reward those efforts of employees who aim high?
So if we see that there are employees that consistently go above and beyond and when we set targets here at Revolut, they're always ambitious at every level. So when you see employees that, even though we're setting them those very ambitious targets, are managing to deliver with the quarterly cycle and with the biannual promotion cycle, people can see exponentially faster growth than you can see at other companies and competitors around. For me, it's all about ownership. That's what I love about it. The fact that there's that level of transparency around what you're responsible for. That for me is great.
Having been the head of performance operations previously, how would you describe Revolut's approach regarding performance culture?
So it's 100% high performance culture. It's a performance culture where we value transparency around not only expectations, but results versus those expectations. That ability to have that feedback loop closed every 3 months and areas of development highlighted, but also strengths highlighted, and people can work on what they need to work on to continue to progress. That can only be driven by our level of transparency around how we do performance management. We have that very real expectation that everyone that's within this company and adding value to this company should take full ownership of what they're doing. And that's what really leads to that professional and personal growth and that ability to, as an individual contributor, push your high performance.
And you keep learning as you go. Each quarter, each goal that you achieve, when you act like an owner, you have to come up with these solutions to the problems that you have in line for you. So it can only lead to more growth.
100%. If you embody that value-based behavior of acting like an owner, the natural consequence of doing that and taking ownership of everything you do and pushing yourself to deliver more is the continued learning opportunities.
What are some tips you have when it comes time to prepare a quarterly review? I mean, how can an employee effectively showcase their own progress and contributions?
So my best tip for everyone involved in the performance cycle, so not just employees that are doing their self-reviews, but also their line managers, their functional managers, actually comes way before the performance review. As soon as the quarter starts, as soon as you have your goals established, what you're looking to try and achieve over the coming 3 months, have constant check-ins with yourself, have constant check-ins, as I'm sure most people will, with their line managers and functional managers to monitor your progress and keep notes. So that when that performance window opens up, you can look back across the full 3 months and understand really how you've grown and the impact you've had has been consistent over those 3 months.
And in those notes, I mean, since we're a data-driven company, I imagine that some kind of data points should be in those notes.
For sure, and clear, tangible actions with timelines. So when you have those discussions and you get that direction, that guidance from management, it's very clear what you need to achieve and by when. And then it's a simple exercise of when the performance window opens, revise all of those different action items, deliverables that you've had to deliver, and understand what you did achieve or potentially what you didn't achieve.
It's like, how do you show your progress? How do you show your contributions to this company? So I think keeping these notes as you go, just in general, will help you also later down when you're writing your CV to have these data points of concrete examples of what you've done.
And it also serves as positive reinforcement for yourself. So a lot of the time people can potentially hit a professional brick wall and not really understand what they need to do to develop. So actually that conscious exercise of reviewing everything you've achieved over the last 6, 9, 12 months can be really positive and serve as a motivator to say, no, what I'm going through is a potential dip, or I've hit a wall with a problem I'm facing, but look at my track record over the last 6, 9, 12 months here at this company. I've been very successful. So I think it serves for both. It serves obviously to keep your CV up to date, but it definitely serves as a personal, professional motivator as well to understand just how good you are and how much impact you've had.
I love just that reminder that you have for yourself that you're doing well. You're doing a good job.
For sure.
You've been very proactive, switching roles when you've felt like you could use a new challenge. What advice do you have for anyone looking to take more control of their professional growth?
The first step's always have that relatively tough conversation with yourself of what do you want? Only once you really understand of where you want to get to in the short, mid, long term and what you're really aspiring to achieve, can you make an informed decision of, okay, where do I want to move in the company? And I think one of the best things you can do here at Revolut is just talk to people that are around the business and understand what different areas of the business do, because we're now a company with over 50 different departments working in countless geographies, and trying to understand really what all these other people do is a great way for you to then be able to reflect on what you're currently doing and potentially what's the gap between where you are now and where you want to end up getting towards.
It's going back to that idea of act like an owner, but act like an owner
of your own career.
Yeah,
for sure.
On that note, we're going to take a quick break. And then I want to ask you, Jonathan, about your time in the military as a Royal Marine.
Looking forward to it.
We'll be right back with more Insider Views. This podcast is brought to you by Revolut People. Revolut People is our very own people management platform. It's been the engine behind our growth, taking us from 250 to more than 10,000 employees in just 5 years. From performance management to HR and hiring, we're now helping other businesses solve the same problems we faced as a growing tech company. Find out more at revolutpeople.com. Revolut People is only available in the UK and the European Economic Area. Terms and subscription fees apply. And we're back on the Revolut Insider podcast here with the head of talent acquisition at Revolut, Jonathan Beanie. Hey, Jonathan, welcome back.
Good to be back.
Jonathan, your first job was actually in the military as a Royal Marine.
Correct.
Can you tell me a bit about that experience for you?
So I made the decision probably, now that my father, probably at too young of an age. I was 16 when I made the decision to join the military.
Wow.
I went through the selection process very young. I put a pause on joining the military full time, went to university to get my degree, and then joined the Royal Marines in 2013. So joined as an officer in the Royal Marines, went through the commando training, and then spent the next 8 years working in the Marines all around the world.
Wow. And what made you decide to join the military?
One of the key motivators for me was to do something that would challenge me. See previous comment of being probably too competitive a person. When I was young at school, there were a couple of teachers that really inspired me, that I definitely saw as professional role models who had both come from the military. So that kind of piqued my interest. And then the more I read into the opportunities that are available in general in the military, I pushed myself towards wanting to join the Royal Marines because of its ability to really challenge yourself both physically and mentally. And then the opportunities that then gave me to work very closely with people. I'd say one of my biggest passions professionally is people management and helping others grow. So I think that was probably one of the big motivators. And then also the opportunity to travel around the world, do some pretty amazing things and visit some pretty amazing places.
Very cool. And what made you transition into civilian life?
So I got to the end of my career at the military. I was actually sent out to Spain, where I'm currently based as a liaison officer. My wife and I had started having conversations around wanting to begin a family. And I felt that I'd achieved everything I wanted to achieve in the military. I'd hit all my goals and challenged myself to the degree I wanted to challenge myself. And I was definitely ready for a different sort of challenge and one that would potentially be more compatible with wanting to have a family. I mean, I spent my 20s just flying around the world and traveling, which was great. But I think when I wanted to start having a family, I wanted to be able to be slightly more present.
I really like that in your experiences with your different careers that you've realized the point where you've said, okay, this is good. Now I'm ready for something else. And you've actually made that change. And I feel like sometimes we get complacent with either our careers or anything that we're doing in our lives that we complain about it or we just don't really act on it. So it's really inspiring to hear from your experience that you've actually made those changes.
But I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier of having that very, and like I said, at times difficult conversation with yourself. Of where do you want to be in a year, 2 year, 3 years time? And if the answer's not in the same position, then there's only one way that's going to change. And that's by you being proactive and going out and finding those new opportunities. And I think the military was definitely there. Like I said, I'd ticked all those boxes and I'd done some amazing things and worked with some truly amazing people. But I knew that it's probably not where I wanted to be in the next 2 to 3 years. And that's why I started to look for other opportunities.
And what was the biggest adjustment for you when you moved from military life to the corporate world?
My first job outside of the military was in Amazon, part of their military veterans pathway. And it definitely served as a great kind of safety net because you move from one organization such as the military, which is hyper-structured, hyper-disciplined, relatively hierarchical, although the branch I was in wasn't that bad. And you move into Amazon, which is exactly the same. Very structured, very large organization, very hierarchical. And I think that really assisted with that transition because the reason they've built that pathway and the reason that we're building the military pathway here at Revolut as well is that it recognizes and really values those skills of being disciplined, being able to lead large teams, being focused on objectives and output. So I found a great home for myself there at Amazon and a great use for those skills I developed, and then started to develop the softer skills that weren't as important in the military, but are definitely more important working in the corporate world.
Is there an example of one of those soft skills that you had to develop afterward?
Yes, I think a very simple and clear one is when you're in a position of leadership and management within the military, if you say something, invariably it happens because that's the way things work. And there's always a collaboration around how plans are developed and how you decide to go about the missions you're given. But ultimately, you're the person that's in charge. You're the person that's responsible. So when the rubber hits the road and you need to make a decision, your decision is the one that everyone coalesces around.
Gotcha.
That's not the same. Definitely not the same here at Revolut, which I love. And at Amazon, it was kind of a halfway between the two, because there's definitely then differing opinions, data that people bring into every conversation here at Revolut around this is why we should be doing this is why we should not be doing this. So developing that soft skill of being able to listen to those people, understand the point people are trying to make and what's their frame of reference when they're making those arguments and making those suggestions, and then taking all of those different inputs to then come up with a plan is very different from the kind of authoritarian role that you potentially at times have in the military.
And you mentioned Amazon having this veterans pathway, and I know Revolut has developed one as well. How do these programs support veterans? And why do you think it's important for programs like this to be available to members of the military or those transitioning out of the service?
One of the biggest problems that people face when they're leaving, not just the military, but other organizations that they've been there for 5, 10, 15 years of their career is a lot of the experience they've gained and the hard and the soft skills they've gained aren't immediately apparent or not easy to understand from someone that's not gone through those experiences. But it doesn't mean they're any less valuable. So here at Revolut, we're focused on bringing the top talent that's leaving the military into our more operationally focused roles. So we're looking at fin crime services and looking at all those different roles where people are leading large teams and complex processes and trying to seek simplicity within that complexity and that chaos at times. And that's why those skills that people have gathered over their military career are really valued. And it's not the sort of skill that would immediately jump out of the CV to you. So unless you've got that structured program, a lot of people potentially wouldn't be given that opportunity to demonstrate those skills. So that's why I think it's so important.
You kind of touched on this, but what qualities do you think that veterans can bring to a company like Revolut? And conversely, what can Revolut offer veterans?
What can veterans offer Revolut? Composure when finding themselves in stressful situations. That's definitely a skill that you hone over your military career and one that's very valuable here at Revolut. A laser focus on the goal and the output and what needs to be achieved. So when all of that noise starts happening or problems start surfacing, if you've been trained to always focus on the objective or what you need to achieve, that's really translatable. And then to answer your second question around what can Revolut offer veterans and people during this program, it's the opportunity to collaborate with some of the greatest minds in our industry. And I think being given the opportunity to work at a company where we truly value culture and ability to get things done and solve complex problems. Over the past 2.5 years that I've been here at Revolut, I've worked with some exceptional people, and from them I've been able to grow and develop a lot of the skills that I didn't have the opportunity to develop in the military and definitely didn't have the opportunity to develop in Amazon. So I think that's what we can offer those people that are coming in.
Yeah, and it sounds like what you were doing in the military. I feel like when you are able to complete these missions, these initiatives, you have this sense of satisfaction that you've done that. And I think when you work at Revolut, it's very apparent when you do complete these projects that what you're doing is making a difference.
Yeah, 100%. You can directly trace your impact to the company's performance. And people have the opportunity to positively contribute to the company's growth and the company's continued success. And then when possible, we do offer these opportunities to cash out some of the equity and see some liquidity of the equity that people have done. So you see this, you can have a direct impact on the company, which increases the value of the company. And therefore, you can then have a real positive impact and see that equity grow.
And recently, employees were able to realize this benefit by taking advantage of the secondary sale.
We just ran in over the summer, so July and August, we ran a secondary sale event, which essentially saw external investors come in and offer to buy a proportion of people's shares. And I think that served as a great tangible example of how all the growth we've seen over the past years since our last secondary sale, which was in 2021, has had a positive impact for them at an individual level, because all of this equity that people have been able to accrue has just increased in value. We almost had a 50% increase in terms of share price. So that's direct benefit for not only the company, but every employee that's able to participate there as well.
Incredible. And talking about impact, let's go back a little bit, because you mentioned wanting to start a family and how that had an impact on your own career transition. How do you think that decision changed your approach to work and life today?
Essentially, what I look for now is a company where I can continue to professionally grow, challenge myself, be outside of my comfort zone, but then also be able to be present and enjoy the journey of being a father and having started a family.
Being a parent while leading a high-performance team at a high-performance company is no easy feat. I can only imagine. What strategies do you implement to help you stay present and engaged in both of these personal and professional roles?
So I think first and foremost, get a good lock on your office door so you don't get any small people invading whilst you're in calls. So that's probably number one. Secondly, I think it's very important to note that at Revolut, we really thrive off empowering people and giving them the flexibility to work how they see fit, going back to our value of acting like an owner and taking full ownership of everything you do. So I think from my perspective, there's no expectation that you're at your desk, changing your desk 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week. It's all about what do you need to achieve and finding the best way that works for you on a personal level to achieve that. So for me, that's some mornings when I can find the time, I'll be able to take both the girls to school and be there and really have that present moment where I'm not connected to my phone, not connected to Slack, do that sort of thing, because it works for me for that day. And there's other days where I can't do that because I need to deliver something, and that's fine. And it's having that flexibility to be able to adjust what you need to, not your obligations, but what you want to be doing as a father and in your personal life, with what you need to be achieving and what you need to be delivering in work. So that for me is the biggest, the flexibility. It's not always easy, and I do get in trouble at home at times because obviously my commute home is me opening my study door and walking out. So there isn't always that easy transition from work mode to being a father. So there are times when I can find myself not being 100% present in one or 100% present in the other. It's an ongoing challenge that I'm working on, of definitely being able to, when you're doing one, you're 100% there, and when you're doing the other, you're 100% there. And even though the commute is 2 or 3 steps out your door, you do try and change that chip as quickly as possible.
I think it's really relatable that we all have that kind of balance in how we manage separating the work part from the home part, especially when we work from home.
Correct. It's a consistent challenge that sometimes we get right, sometimes we get wrong. And as long as we keep trying to develop our own mechanisms, because different things work for different people.
And you mentioned that your dream as a teen was to be in the military. You made that dream a reality. You mentioned you wanted to start a family. You also made that dream a reality. You didn't mention a dream of being head of recruitment of talent acquisition. What do you have to say about discovering potential and unexpected paths?
As long as you're the sort of person, and I think those that really succeed here at Revolut are the sort of people that just enjoy challenges and enjoy solving new and innovative problems and being outside of their comfort zone, it's almost irrelevant the sort of problems and challenges that come your way, because you'll find growth opportunities and satisfaction in everything that comes. So no, I didn't dream as a 16-year-old of being head of department for talent acquisition. I definitely dreamt of being in the military and achieved that. But then since then, my focus on a personal, professional level has changed from wanting to do those things of jumping out of airplanes and flying around the world to challenging myself and growing. And there's lots of different ways you can challenge yourself and grow. And it's all often in the unexpected ways and working with unexpected people that potentially you wouldn't have worked with otherwise. So that's definitely what's brought me here and why I'm continuing to love working in the role I'm.
Incredible, yeah. And looking back in your career and where you've been, what advice would you have given to yourself when you were just starting out in your career?
Don't be afraid to take initiative. And I think that's something that we highly value. So those individuals that can come into the company understand very quickly what the situation they find themselves in is, what's their scope, what's the potential impact they can have, and then they take initiative. So they're the sort of people that don't require positive affirmation from others. They don't require kind of hand-holding to a certain degree. And I think when I left the military, I was very cautious about wanting to take too much initiative and wanting to push too many things at Amazon. And I think if I were to have my time again and the first couple of months out of the military, I'd have probably had more confidence in myself in what I was doing and what I was thinking was correct and adding value and acted on it. And that's something I've definitely developed here at Revolut and been able to really cement is that ownership and that level of initiative.
Sounds like you're saying be bold.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Jonathan, for being on the show and sharing your experiences and your insight with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. It's been great to talk.
Likewise. And for those listening, you can add the podcast to your favorites so you don't miss an episode, and follow us on Instagram at Revolut Insider. This has been the Revolut Insider podcast, where we explore Revolut from the inside out. Until next time, remember, the sky is not the limit, it's just the beginning. Revolut. Change the way you money.